Welcome to Have You Read Any Good Books? I'm Mavis Applewater, and this is Author Chat. This week we are welcoming a singer-songwriter, author, hailing from the Pacific Northwest, Virginia Black. Virginia got her start in fan fiction. She's had short stories appear in anthologies for Bold Stroke Books and Sapphire Books. Her first novel, Consecrated Ground, is amazing. Her second novel, No Shelter But the Stars, was released literally days ago on January 23rd. I can't wait to talk to her, so now here's Virginia. Welcome, Virginia.
Hey
I just,
Mavis,
nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too.
I
I
love,
find it I find it really hard to believe that we've run around in the same circles, I'm certain, and have not
oh
met
yeah.
yet. So this is awesome.
And you also started in fanfic, but different fanfic from where I started. Um, Xena.
Uh,
But
we, are we jumping right in? Because
let's go. Yeah.
yeah. So I actually did start in Xena. I just didn't show
Oh,
it to anyone.
okay. Because I was reading your bio, getting to know you, and I saw Supergirl, Lost Girl, Merlin. These are shows I'm not really haven't watched. I'll be honest.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar. But you also did season finale and Love Undaunted short stories for Sapphire Books. They're
Yes.
I got to look at my notes here. Fandom to fantasy.
Yeah. That was my first foray into publication. Really was volume 1 and 2 Fandom to Fantasy. Sapphire Books accepted one of my stories, which was phenomenal. I'd written some fan fiction at that point, and it was an amazing opportunity, and I'm forever grateful. So that's I think actually season finale was the first thing I ever published.
That's awesome. That's a great way to start too, and it's a great company and as all of these little presses that we've come out of from fan fiction. In fact, you also have in our words for stories from
Yeah,
Black Indigenous. Yeah, that was with Bold Strokes.
that was with Bold Strokes. That was Reclamation. Let's see. There was, gosh, actually I got the stack. There's there's Constant, which was in Writing Freedom, which is an anthology that Brisk Press published. That came out of the Golden Crown Literary Society's Writing Academy. They had accepted some shorts from that program, and mine was accepted, which was quite frankly a great honor. I really, that was one of my favorite stories, and it's not typical. And let's see, I just had a new short published last fall. Um, which was in Soul Food Stories from Bywater Books.
Okay,
That's called Ravenous. That's actually a prequel, if you will, to my first novel, Consecrated Ground,
which is right behind me.
which you have just very wonderfully posted right there behind you.
I have to say, I had heard your name in GCLS, Gold Crown Literary Society, and their Academy of Writing is just the most amazing thing in the world. But I had seen you host a couple of when everything was online because we had a pandemic, and I consecrated ground. I can't say how much I love this book. It just I love it. And when first we got the witches coven, we got Joan who is kick ass. Love this girl
Yeah.
and vampires. What's not to like?
Well, I wanted to do something different with vampires. I don't think that vampires are ever really played out. I think that in terms of popularity, they ebb and flow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, which was I tried very hard not to make them sexy. It's really hard to write lesbian fiction and not have at least one vampire who leans into sexiness. And we dance around it with Elizaveta, who is a late stage villain. But in general, I wanted the vampires to be the really the big bads, like
Yeah.
not super attractive in any way. And I wanted the concept of the war witch to really land. So Joan Matthews is a badass of a different vein from the witch perspective, and I really, really wanted to explore that.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely badass. I mean, come on. First meet her, she's like, okay, they're not vampires, but I got this big ass truck and SUV, and let's just get rid of these assholes.
True
It's
story.
yeah, and I can't. I'm telling you, you need to read this book. Now, I am not familiar with your latest, but I do want to say a quote from you, which I just totally freaking love this. You write about women loving women fiction, most likely in the future and probably in space. I just that's awesome.
I'm a sci-fi nerd. I delve into I think the challenge with sci-fi, more so when I was younger, not as much now, was that if I wanted to find kick-ass women, there were a handful of women in sci-fi, but most of the women were badasses in fiction, and they were in the paranormal realm. And
Mm-hmm.
then thanks to things like Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, which came out in the 90s, and a couple of other series that tried to piggyback on its success,
Yeah.
there were a number of characters. Most of the names escape me at the moment, but there was a series with Jessica Alba as a lead that was more sci-fi. But there were more characters that were in that paranormal vein.
Right.
And so I started reading a lot of urban fiction. And so that's how you get into the Laurel K. Hamiltons and uh HLN Hanover had some characters that were pretty badass in the paranormal realm. Um, and going down the path of urban fantasy was kind of a natural progression. But sci-fi is my first love. Sci-fi is um, that's where I want to spend most of my time. So it's almost for me, it's kind of interesting that my first novel was a paranormal urban fantasy type
Yeah.
romance. And No Shelter But the Stars is absolutely a science fiction romance.
Which just came out on the 23rd of January.
Yes, it did.
It just came out. And I
Right.
saw that it was coming out, and I'm like, well, sci-fi gets no love. It really doesn't. It's in one of those subsections. It's like the paranormal as well. It's like,
Yeah.
no love at all. But you nice write up little blurbs from Andy Marquette, who I love Andy. And how awesome is this Catherine V. Forrest?
That was a jaw dropper for me. Um,
That would
uh,
be heart stopping, you know.
it really, really was. I was I was in the middle of a meeting when I found out, and I stuttered. I was gobsmacked, flattered, and thrilled.
That's
Uh,
such an honor. I mean,
yeah,
kudos out of you.
thank
Uh,
you.
oh wow. And I not familiar with this brand new book of yours, so give us a little taste without spoiling.
Sure. So the original premise is that we have these two women who are on opposing sides of an ongoing war, if you will.
Mhm.
Kieran Loyle is the last heir to. I'm just gonna read my notes on this because
Oh
I
yeah, go
want to
for it.
get it
Yeah.
right. Kieran Loyle is the last heir to the lost throne of a forgotten planet, and she's the figurehead of this nomadic people who are fleeing the galactic tyranny of a brutal regime. Davia Sifane is the unrecognized daughter of the former High King of that regime. And happenstance pits them against each other in battle. They're the only two to survive that battle. And neither expects the outcome, which is that they end up marooned on a barren moon with no hope of escape or no hope of rescue, and barely a hope of survival. And the only way that they can do that truly is to survive is to rely on each other.
Wow.
Um, so the tag, of course, is what they learn will either kill them or change the galaxy forever. But it's a sci-fi romance, so we know that sooner or
Yeah.
later they get together, right? That's the only spoiler that's not a spoiler.
Well, yeah,
Um,
the angst. You have to have a little angst there, and that sounds like a lot.
there's a lot. I cover a lot of ground, and I'm not ashamed to add the word epic to it. It feels
There
it
you
feels like
go.
an epic story
Oh, cool.
somehow in 350 pages. But yeah.
That's not too much. Trust me. um, I started with short stories and somehow ended up with big books. But that's awesome. That's well, then I'm gonna have to add that to the collection there.
Oh, I
Yeah.
hope I hope that you do, and I hope you enjoy it. If you like sci-fi, I think you'll enjoy this one.
I love such a variety of genres that, and I don't think we need to pigeonhole ourselves. I know romance rules the world, which is good for me because that's mostly what I do. But it like in other stuffs, we can draw upon so many different like mystery and sci-fi and just go. And I have such an eclectic enjoy reading so many different genres that it's like, yes, bring it on. I love opening though and seeing characters who I can relate to from our community and other communities and things that I can't relate to. So it's opening up our world so much. And we've come so far from the days of Naiad, which was an awesome publishing house, but I was told point blank, you can't mix romance and mystery. Back in the day, it's like, oh, okay, Barbara. And as we
Yeah,
know, we
yeah.
can. Yes, we can, and we should.
I think that's interesting. I think there's room for everything. And if you
Yes.
want mystery, there's plenty of mystery. And if
Yeah.
you want science fiction, hard or soft, we have that. If you want paranormal or you want a thriller, we have all of those things. I like to think that because most of the writing within this sort of niche community that we have, if you will, we have our small presses,
Mm-hmm.
and many of them are willing to entertain those blend stories, those science fiction romance, or um uh I don't want to pair everything with romance, but
But
you could do a paranormal thriller, or you could mix and match. Um, and and if you have a platform, or if you have even a steady support group of other authors, you will find an audience for your book. And I think that's really awesome. The other thing that's interesting that you mentioned Naiad. I remember when I first came out, there were so few. I don't even know if we called them lesbian fiction then, but there were so few of them. You could keep up. You could
oh
read
yeah,
the latest whatever, and all of us had read the same books. Um,
there was Naya,
Now I can't.
Allison.
Yeah, I can't keep up with what came out today.
No,
There's so much, and that is, I feel so grateful for that. That there's always a new story for me to find at any given moment. uh, and that when we're honest and tell the stories that we want to tell, we'll find our audience,
right.
right? So
And we're
the
no longer in the back of the bookstore, with that little shelf.
No, but so I'm gonna share an unpopular opinion with you, which is that I miss the little shelf because then I know where to find what I want to find. Just the other day, I was in one of the big box stores, and I realized that our work is now distributed throughout the store, which is fantastic. That's
That's
wonderful
great.
for the
But
greater platform of our work. But I'm shopping. I got 20 minutes before I got to go, on to the next chore. And I just want to go grab the latest things from the authors I love. And I got to walk around. There is no one shelf where it
Now I
all
gotta
lives.
go find them. It's funny, years ago, Women's Week, Kate Clinton, who also Bywater books, made very, I miss being able to go and find us. I mean, it's great that we've made that stride and all that, but I want to find us.
Yeah,
It is, it's just the changes. I just remember, because I'm originally from the East Coast and we had our gay bookstore. Of course, now finding a bookstore in general is a little hard.
true.
I don't, you're in the Pacific Northwest.
I am. I'm in Portland, Oregon,
I love Portland, great city.
as do I. The People's Republic of Portland.
And well, I was gonna guess Oregon because of your work, and I read your bio, and it said Pacific Northwest, and you've been happily married for some time now, and you have a teenager.
I have a teenager,
Oh Lord.
a newly minted 16-year-old.
Yeah, I bet that's fun.
It's entertaining and challenging. But she's she's a bright one. So it makes for entertaining conversation, that's true.
Oh yeah. But you must get a lot of inspiration for where you live. I mean, Portland, that whole area of Oregon is just so beautiful. I remember I was
I
flying in and saw all the trees, and it's like, oh,
I will say that for Consecrated Ground, the tone that I was going for was early 90s. It's set in a timeless present, if you will.
mhm.
Um, but the tone that I was going for was early 90s Pacific Northwest. There was a grit and grime to parts of Portland and parts of the rural, the smaller towns that I wanted to convey. But when you talk about the terrain and the roads Joan drives and the
Right.
paths that Lee walks, those are all Pacific Northwest. Um, No Shelter But the Stars is a bit different. There's high desert here in Oregon, and then there's similar desert in parts of inland California, which is where I'm originally from.
Okay.
And I borrowed some of those moon descriptions from those deserts.
Oh, nice.
Um, that's what I was picturing. There's I've never lived in desert terrain, but I've certainly visited more than once, and there's a beauty there, even in such stark locales, that I wanted to convey in this novel. A couple of folks said I was successful. I hope many more agree. Um, but I wanted to get that sort of visceral response to that stark beauty in that story.
It's a great cover, and it looks like what you just described.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, both of these covers are Anne McMahon. Those are
oh, they're
all
both in.
they're
Oh,
both
just
Anne
because we're
McMahon.
she's awesome. I mean,
She's
hands
amazing.
down. It's like, yeah, of course I'm voting for you again. Oh my God, look at that.
It's true.
Yeah, she knows she does amazing work. Amazing work. Now,
And a hell of a writer, but go
oh
on.
yeah, not to skip over that. It's
Right.
and I don't think because we've talked about the conferences and stuff, and I keep trying to stress to people this is a good way to get out there and learn if you're starting out your craft. And you started with the academy, which Susan Maher was talking about as well.
I Susan Maher was my mentor, actually.
Oh,
And so I went to GCLS before I applied to the academy.
was it when it was in Portland or?
No, my first GCLS was in, let's see, it was 2018. And I want to say Pittsburgh.
Okay, I missed that one. And then that was the
Um,
year after Vegas.
yes. I don't think I did GCLS in Vegas. Um, but I did Pittsburgh and then New Mexico and then Denver. That sounds right.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
right.
Uh, but I met a few folks at GCLS, and that was where I first connected with Finn Burnett and a couple of other folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I am driven to improve my writing, to really study the craft, and that was a way for me to do that. And one of the things that I love about GCLS, about the writing academy, is how much they meet writers where they are, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to insisting that they need to be at a particular place in their writing.
Right.
And now they've expanded to include Writing Academy too, which gives them a wider range, if you will, of places where writers can be in their journey in order to meet them where they are, and help them develop their writing. Highly recommended for folks who want to build on their craft. I can't.
If you've, and a lot of people will have that itch.
Mhm.
And and I'm sure many people like try to pitch an idea of what you should write. And again, someone from Bywater, I had quoted, and I always use this. That's fabulous. You should write that. You know, ask me to write. You should write this. This is your story. And if you've got that itch, just even going and talking and doing the panels to GCLS, and there are other conferences. Is ReadOut is going to be
Mhm.
in Gulfport, coming up, uh, like 10
Next weekend.
days. Yeah, next
Yeah.
week, 10 days. It's, yeah, I was thinking Mercedes' birthday is on the 16th. And
Yeah, I'm headed there.
oh,
So
awesome.
I will be down there next week. And then plan to go to, hopefully, Saints and Sinners in New Orleans in
Nola,
March.
have you been to
Uh,
New Orleans before? It's such a great city.
I passed through, but I hope to really get into the vibe of New Orleans this time. I'm gonna spend a little extra time down there. And then of course I'm going to GCLS in the Twin Cities in June, late June.
Late June. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I would really love to go up because I have friends up in the Minneapolis area. I did an actual bookstore, a woman's bookstore up there 100 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was a good store. Amazon Trails, it was called.
Oh
And
nice.
yeah, it was fun. Uh, but try to stress getting into this because it it inspires you. And for people who are always like, oh gee, I always wanted to write a book, it kind of gets you moving sometimes.
It does, and I think that there are things that people don't consider. And well, I think that when folks think, okay, I want to write, I want to tell a story, that the first thing that folks think is the end point is publishing a novel,
Hmm.
and I think it misses a lot of area.
Right.
There are people who write just for themselves. There are people who write just for themselves and their friends. There are people who
Hmm.
write, and whether that's original fiction or fan fiction, and write any length of story that is absolutely possible, or make the transition to writing for magazines or short stories that get published in anthologies, um, or novellas, which is a space I'm looking at as well. There's so much that we can do as writers, and I'm not saying that writing a novel isn't an awesome goal or an awesome target. It absolutely is. I am grateful to be sitting here looking at two novels that I have written and published, and that is absolutely amazing,
it,
and I still can't believe it. But being a writer is, there's so many opportunities there and so many ways to be a writer, and I hope that anyone who gets the itch explores it and allows themselves to look into, to consider all of those options.
yes. Well, it's something, Harper Lee's sister was being interviewed, and someone said, well, it's a shame she only wrote the one book. And she didn't stop writing. She just stopped publishing.
Yeah.
She had no
Totally
interest to
different.
publish again.
Right.
I just want to remind everyone that all the links for your books, and I love that you put everything up there for us in the
Oh,
background.
awesome.
Awesome. uh, will be in the description as well.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, we want to keep people up to date with what we're doing because it is, have you read any good books? And here's two books and some shorts, and I'm hoping we're going to see some novellas. You just hinted at that.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to make that work. They are absolutely sci-fi novellas. So I don't know. I have many conversations to have about where the best place for them is, and how to make that a thing in the world. But are they drafted, waiting for me to mold them into some proximity of pseudo perfection? Yes, they absolutely do, and I'm just trying to figure out what is coming next with those. And I'm also currently drafting the sequel to Consecrated Ground. So
Awesome.
yes, that is in the works. And I'd urge folks. I mean, you can find me on all the socials here.
On the
Um,
socials, and
but don't hesitate to visit my website and get on the mailing list so you get all the news as soon as it happens.
I am on the mailing list.
Hey, awesome.
Hey, that's how I was like, oh, she's got a new book out. I wonder if she'll do an author chat. So yeah, I mean, I always love to hear what's new and what's in the works with authors. Now, we're getting into the inspiration and your love for sci-fi, so we're going to see some maybe novellas. That's exciting, and I get that's a hard because if you're trying to publish this, a page count thing, and
Well, it really depends.
yeah,
There's a resurgence in novellas right now, but I don't know if it's kind of a flash that'll go away.
yeah,
Um,
are they
and
fun?
it's certainly taken off in general science fiction. Um, I don't think it's taken off within lesbian fiction or women loving women or sapphic
Hmm.
fiction anywhere except for Amazon. And definitely not in the published realm. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what the best path
With the next step.
exists for those stories. Um, but yeah, I've got, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them drafted, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with them.
Right.
For characters that won't go away. I was joking about this with my wife about the popular interviewer question, which is, where do you get your ideas? It's a question I get a lot, that we all get a lot.
Yes.
And I find it hilarious because I don't get ideas. I have characters that show up in my head and start yelling at me until I write it down. And those ideas come from anywhere. Song lyrics,
That's
tripping
right. You're a songwriter as well.
tripping on the street when I bump in the sidewalk, and there's an idea for something, or
Mhm.
I'm driving down the road, or someone says something witty or funny, and these stories come from anywhere. They come from everywhere. So it's more a matter of, how do I make them shut up? And the only way to
Right.
make them shut up is to write them down.
I have found, yeah, and you have characters following you around all the time, apparently. And agreed, they will not shut up. They will not leave you alone. They will not rest. And that it's like, come on, I gotta go to work. I've got things to
Right? I'm
do.
trying to sleep. I'm
I'm
trying to
trying to
sleep.
sleep. I'm trying to sleep. And being married to a writer, my wife will back up, probably your wife going, oh yeah, they got up in the middle of the night and they had to do something.
I have a handful of friends, and it's a running joke where we will all be together, and I will randomly just either stare off into space or grab a piece of paper and start madly
Hmm.
scribbling, and they will say to one another, "She'll be back in a minute. Let's just carry on."
Yes.
And uh, I, I I feel blessed that I have friends who support my madness.
Yes, that's always good.
Yes,
So you don't have to put out that warning. Be careful what you say, or you'll end up at my next.
they already know.
They know. Any similarities? Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm sure you have people in your life going, "Isn't that?" And you're like, or is that just me?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
That's just a rumor. Ah, but busy, and you're going to getting wait a minute. Ta-da. We got a few minutes left. And going to ReadOut, and ReadOut is tackling some tough subjects like the banning of books.
Yeah, ReadOut is tackling some subjects, and I understand that there are some folks that didn't want to go to ReadOut because of just the policies in the state of Florida, which
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand.
Right.
I completely understand. I also know that that event is put on by the LGBTQ plus resource center down there in the Gulfport Library or affiliated with the library. And while I think it's important that we speak with our dollars and we
Mm-hmm.
don't support those places that don't support us, that we also don't leave our family behind, which
No.
means I will absolutely go down there and go to the event. And I will absolutely support all of the small businesses that are supporting the event. And I will absolutely not throw any money at those organizations that are not supporting
Supporting.
our community.
As
So it's not always that I can make that delineation that I'm in a position, and it's a privilege to be in a financial position to make that
right.
position, to take that position.
And there
So I want to make that clear. But
and
yeah,
the
completely.
fundraiser, and I've been asked by Mercedes Liz to mention when she did one of these that there will be extra security at all the thing. But
Yeah,
the fundraiser is Birthdays Are a Drag, which I wish I was closer to Florida. I'd go, you know.
it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's all for the greater good.
So folks are going to be down there. Come see me.
You come see Virginia and Mercedes, and Lynn Ames is actually interviewing her in a couple of days.
That's
So I
awesome.
didn't realize you were all doing the same festival.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind of wild that we're
great.
all going to be there. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great though. I think it's great. And like you said, it's the state of Florida. We all know what's wrong with Florida and who the people are behind it. We also know the people who've been fighting that. And you have to support the good causes as well, the people in the trenches.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, the state government can shove it, but the family that we've got down there, we got your backs.
Yeah. It's like when Pink came down and did her concert, she gave out hundreds of copies of banned books.
There you go.
Yeah, I love that girl. Ah, more ways than one. But do you find that with your sci-fi, you get to maybe not at times know it, make a statement?
I don't know. I think generally I shy away from specific statements because I don't consider myself well spoken enough to address them well.
Right.
I tend to write stories that operate from the position of this is what it looks like when we win. I'm queer and I'm not apologizing for it. I love women and I'm not apologizing for it. My life is valid and I don't need to prove it to you. So that's where my characters live.
Mm-hmm.
That they are queer and love women is not an issue.
Right.
There are stories that must address those issues and they must exist
Mm-hmm.
because we need them. But I think we need all of our stories.
Right.
So, you know, Joan being queer, not a thing.
It was never like, oh yeah, it was never even like kind of brought up.
Yeah, and that
Like,
that holds true in most of my stories. And not for any other reason than I don't know if I could write that well. I'm writing from a place of yeah, we've already tackled that.
we've yeah.
Yeah. But we need
That's,
those stories. I want to stress that. So,
yes,
yeah.
because the times being what they are. But I also, it's something I commented to someone. I don't miss the days of having to really hustle to whatever mode of transportation I was taking after I left a club.
Yeah.
I do not miss that.
Yeah, and I don't want to go back.
No, no.
Yeah.
And being able to get married was something we never thought we could do.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, and here we are. Well, I'm originally from Massachusetts, so we got a little head start.
You got a head start.
We got a
But,
little bit of a head
we
start.
caught up.
You did. You did. Okay. Looking at the clock, we got a couple minutes here. I am so looking forward to reading No Shelter But the Stars.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, sci-fi, and there's several sci-fi authors out there with really good stuff. And it just, I feel sometimes gets lost in the shuffle.
That's an interesting thing, and I'll try to bring that up. I'm actually on the sci-fi panel at ReadOut. But
Awesome.
I was thinking of Andy Marquette, I was thinking of Fletcher Delancey, Gon Brook wrote some things
Mm-hmm.
for Bold Strokes.
Nat Burns.
And Nat Burns from mainstream publishing. I was thinking of Melissa Scott. I mean, we're out here.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to wave a few more flags and sing each other's praises. And of course, I'm forgetting a whole bunch of folks that L. Iyer will remind me of later. But we have these stories. I think we just need to do a better job of sharing what we love with other
Right.
folks, and calling us out when we can. So
Yeah, there was a time, unless you went to Dragon Con or Comic Con, there weren't any panels on sci-fi at all,
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
My cat's trying to get into.
Well, that's fair.
Well, I'm excited. I'm gonna put the link for readout up. There we go. Come on.
Oh, excellent.
Up. Everything will be in the description, reminding people to click like and subscribe. And I'm looking forward to more
Awesome.
books from you. I am so looking forward to more, and I can't thank you enough. It was so great to meet you
Nice to
and to
meet you
do
too, Mavis.
this.
Thanks for inviting me. This has been a really good time.
Yeah, and we're just a little out running short on time, so I'm going to say my goodbyes and thank you again.